Okay, welcome back to the Success Money Marriage Podcast. I'm Steve Siebold.
And I'm Dawn Siebold.
Yes, you are. And boy, what a
Crazy week.
Deal last week. America is on fire, just and not in a good way. And of course, one of the biggest things in the last 2 or 3 decades was the overturning of Roe versus Wade, or otherwise known as the constitutional right that was established in 1973 for a woman to be able to have an abortion or control what she does with her own body. And of course, the religious right is as happy as they can possibly be. They've been fighting for it in the churches and outside the churches and everywhere else for 50 years. And everyone else is pissed off, especially, I would imagine, especially young people, especially young women.
Yes.
So
I think I heard on the news, so I don't know how much you can believe that, but 80% of the women are upset. 80% of the women in the United States did not want it overturned.
I don't blame them. They got the government. I mean,
this is the first time you see the government really not doing something that the general public wants. I mean, that we can remember.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was something in the past, but 80% of the women are upset because it was overturned, and that's just not what Americans are wanting, and now we have the Supreme Court.
Oh, you know what they're saying. This is what the right is saying. They're saying, well, see, they're not. It's not a law. What they're saying is they're turning it back over. This is how they placate people.
Right.
Oh, they're turning it back over to the states. Well, okay, now, so if I'm if I have money and I live in, Alabama, and of course, which will outlaw the whole thing, of course.
Right.
They'll be the first ones. Mississippi and Alabama. No offense.
Mississippi, 10 days, and it'll be illegal starting today.
Oh yeah, I'm not surprised.
10 days.
Well, yeah, it's
the trigger
sure,
states
of course.
was Mississippi.
The
10
less
days.
educated states are, the more they do things like that. I mean, let's just be honest. That's what it is. It's about education,
Right.
and it's about social evolution, and it's very slow in states like that. And they're pretty places. We went to school in Mobile, Alabama.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're great people and everything. It's just that it's just not as forward thinking as they're behind.
So they're going to go to California. They'll go to They have to go to California because it's mostly the Bible Belt. If you look at the red states at the bottom, it's mostly the Bible Belt. California said they're going to put more money into making sure that these centers stay open and make sure that there's an avenue for people to be able to come in from other states to be able to get abortions. So it's just so odd to have something so hodgepodge in the entire United States, depending on what state you live in. And it's just not right. And, this is one of these issues as a partner in business and a partner in being married and being together that could really create problems if we didn't both agree. You and I both agree with this.
Yeah, well, okay. Before you go there, I totally agree. And I want to get to that because I know that's the purpose of the podcast. But so I don't want to go too far on this. But the one thing
I don't want you to go too far on getting upset because this could make me very angry.
Well, it should make you angry. It should make a lot of people. It makes me angry because here's the bottom line. If you have money, if someone in our circle need an abortion, they could fly to Timbuktu to get an abortion.
Yes.
And stay at the Ritz-Carlton for 3 days and rest and do whatever they want to do because they're rich. Okay, let's be honest. And that's good for them, right? But if I'm living, somewhere and I'm like a lot of people who are poor and I don't have the money to go to California to get an abortion. I can't go out of my hometown because I can barely pay my bills. I can barely feed my kids. Maybe I'm a single mother. You know what? I'm in trouble. I can't afford to feed the kids I have now. Now you're telling me, oh, well, don't worry about the federal government. It's up to your state. Well, what if my state doesn't approve it? I don't have the kind of money to go out of state. So now I'm going to have another child I can't afford. And what happens? So we're going to have an explosion of children. You know that 20% of children in this country, 20%, 1 out of 5 children in the richest country in the history of the world is food insecure.
Yes.
Food in America. That is shameful. Shame on us. I mean, we have the money to fix that. Let's be honest. America has the money.
Right.
We're just not fixing it because we don't prioritize children. But we want to tell women what to do with their bodies so they can have more children that we can't afford to feed.
It's
unreal.
We'll see what happens. I wasn't sure. I tried to look it up. Can they overrule it again?
Well, what they're doing, they're sending it back to the states.
Sending it back to the states.
And that's again what they say. Well, send it back to the states and let the states decide. Well, now I'm a victim of my state. If I live in a right-wing rural state, or not a rural state, but a red state, I'm probably not going to be able to control my own body. Now, again, this is no offense to our religious listeners and viewers. If there are some, maybe by now there's not any left. I'm not sure because it's not an indictment against any kind of religion. But at the same time, this is all driven. This has been driven for 50 years. Make no mistake. This is not about politics. This is not about this is not about medical care for women. That's a cover. This is all about one thing: doing what religiously right-driven people think is in the Bible. A book that 30% of Americans, especially young Americans, do not believe in. So the government is basically sanctioning a religious book that 30% of Americans don't even believe in, especially young Americans.
And you don't see the
hold on, let me finish. And to young Americans that have access to information that you and I never had. Right. They know more when they're 10 years old because they have a smartphone than we knew when we were 30.
Right.
Because we didn't have that kind of information. Right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And the thing that really gets me going is that, all of these people who may not believe in the Bible or may not be Christians, you don't see them starting to try to make laws that are going against whatever religious belief you want to practice and make laws saying that you can't practice anything that you want to, but they can come back to us and say, here's what you can do with your body.
Right.
It's just not right. It's just
Women
too bad.
Be
We've gone backwards.
Outraged.
We're
they
going backwards. I mean, we're going to go back to the day where women are barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen because the white man wants to control you.
Men want to control. Well, you know what? We know really what liberated. I mean, any educated person in this country knows what liberated women.
Right.
And what it was in 1964 when they legalized contraception.
Right.
All of a sudden, women didn't have to be barefoot and pregnant. They could go out and become executives, and they did. And now we have a vice president of the United States who's a woman. She would not be vice president if I can almost guarantee, unless if contraception was still illegal. But Clarence Thomas said that. I don't know why he would say this, but he is as far right, and his wife is obviously, as we found out recently, is as far right as you can possibly be. Right. These are fundamentalist Christians, right? And I'm not putting down. We know thousands of people probably, with our travels around the world,
very good friends,
that are fundamentalist Christians, and there's nothing wrong with that. But don't make me live under your beliefs, your religious beliefs. Or anyone else. That's not right. That's not right.
You're getting me fired up, Steven.
Well, it's wrong. And now they're saying they're going to go after contraception, same-sex marriage. Why do these people care so much what goes on in someone's bedroom? You know why? Because it says so in a book that they believe in, that 30% of the American population does not believe in. That has no proof. That was written 2,000 years ago. Okay, all right. I won't go any farther than that, but But
let's do bring it back to the topic of our podcast and why the people listen to us. And when you're in a situation like that, you got to come to a compromise because there are a lot of issues that you and I do not see eye to eye on.
Bet there are.
This one we do.
This one we do.
But there are a lot that we don't. And I think as a strong couple that is working together, you need to find that compromise. And we have literally almost been. Well, we did get kicked out of that one Chili's for going at each other about politics a long time ago. Remember when you were voting Democrat and I was voting Republican, and you're like, I'm not going to show up to vote because it's going to cast out, and we got really loud, and the manager came over.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, that was back. We were getting in this big political debate on which party was better, and we got kicked out of a Chili's. But we haven't gotten kicked out of anywhere since then, but we have had strong, healthy conversations over policies or programs and statewide programs and legal issues, and that we have difference of opinion. And we can agree to disagree. Yeah. And we just don't bring it up unless.
Well, here's when I really get mad with you about this, is that when I dig into it and you don't think it's as important as I do. Because these things like this, now I know you're fired up about this because you're a woman, I don't blame you. But sometimes you don't get fired up about these political things. And I like to follow politics, but it's not about the politics necessarily. It's about if you alter the social fabric, the social evolution of the greatest democracy, and we are obviously, we're not the greatest in everything, but America is the greatest democracy in terms of an experiment in the history of the world. I mean, so goes American democracy, so goes democracy around the world. Let's be honest. And we have friends all over the world. I mean, we've traveled around the world for 25 years, so all our friends...
Who are laughing at us right now.
We had friends to the mansion over the weekend, they said, what is going on with you
Out of the country. They were from out of the country, and
what is happening to people? Our friends in France are saying the same thing the other day. They're like,
oh my gosh,
what is
embarrassing.
What is going on?
It's embarrassing.
And so that's but at the end of the day, we're going to have to find a middle ground. And so let's bring it home to what this podcast is about. You're in business with your spouse. You've got opposite views on one thing or another, and we do, like you said, on one thing or another. But at the end of the day, it's a microcosm to a macro problem, because The macro of this is the country needs to find middle ground. The micro is when you're in business with your spouse, you need to find common ground. Bottom line, you have to find the middle. I mean, you can be as fired up as you want and say, I'm right, I'm digging in, and the other person says they're right. And if you don't find some middle ground, you're going to get divorced, and you're going to lose your business, and you're going to lose everything you have probably.
And chances are it's not worth it. Chances are you're getting all worked up over something that's not worth it. So.
Well, this Roe v. Wade thing is worth it.
This is worth it.
It is worth it.
I agree.
Otherwise, we probably wouldn't even be bringing this up. This is a very big deal. And again, we won't belabor it because it is what it is. And the information's, this will be ongoing for a long time, and there'll be fights on both sides and everything. But it's just put us back 50 years. It's very sad. It's a long, it's very sad. Again, whatever your belief is about, abortion, I think any time in general, when you're pulling rights away from people that they used to have, so the premise would be that we don't have kids, but if we had kids, our kids would have fewer rights than we do. There's something fundamentally wrong with that strategy. You're going backwards. And America is on the decline. We are going backwards. And, you and I love this country. This country has been very, very good to us. I mean, we've taken advantage of the system. We were, born into a good situation where, good families and stuff like that. And we had opportunity to go to school and get educated and meet people around, and travel around the world. And so we're very fortunate. I mean, obviously, this country's been very good to us. I mean, we're very lucky. But America's on the decline, and everyone knows it around the world, and this is part of it. And if you guys listen, as I am, I hope we're not really offending anyone. We're not trying to offend anyone, but just to get people to think about it, because this is a domino effect. They're going to, and Clarence Thomas was honest about it. This is going to go one thing after another. Don't think it stops at contraception and same-sex marriage and everything else. I mean, imagine. Well, I won't even go there. But I'm just saying, I'm not, because it's not about that. We better sum this up now, because you're getting fired up.
For those that are just listening, his face is getting really red right now.
No, because so goes the social fabric of a country. So goes the country.
I agree.
You can't take it. You can have. There are places in the world, as you know, where women, if they're raped, they're blamed for it, and they bury them up to their neck and they stone them to death. It's not enough to throw a stone at a woman that was raped. By the way, it was not her fault. Right. But since she had sex in some form or fashion, well, now they bury her up to her head. So it's more painful than it would be if the stones were hitting her body.
And that's why they don't report it.
That happens right now in the world.
That's why they don't report it.
Well, but I mean, okay, that's the extreme, obviously, but it has to start somewhere. Right. The downward slide must begin somewhere, and it can end up, America would never end up in that place, but you don't know how far down it could go when you have people basing laws on things that happened, that were written thousands of years ago by people that wandered the desert.
I still think it's about control. I really do.
Of course it's about control.
I think it's about men controlling women.
Religion is about control.
It is. I think
that's the whole thing. They did it to control the world, and they did it. They succeeded.
Yes, they did.
I mean, right?
Yep.
And again, that doesn't mean if someone says, well, okay, though that's, this is all about God. This is not talking about God. We're talking about religion. You can believe in any
talking about people
God you want.
Today, in 2022.
Right.
Men in 2022 making sure that this passed so that it goes to the states. We're not talking about 2,000 years ago. We're talking today. This is happening today.
Right.
2022. It's embarrassing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll leave it at that. So we probably offended enough people with that, but just it's something to think about. But again, just to wrap this up, and we'll wrap the show here for this episode. But obviously these are things that things that are happening. It just seems like the whole world's on fire, and America seems like to be lighting the torch, partially at least, along with Russia, I guess, in a different way. But
for a happier podcast, subscribe to our podcast, and maybe next week we'll have something a little bit lighter and more fun to talk about.
Sometimes you got to talk about the tough stuff.
Stop.
You got to have a tough conversation. Stop bossing me around. You're very bossy.
Stop.
I don't even have my football helmet. I mean, my motorcycle helmet.
Here, I brought it with me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, again, I guess at the end of the day, as a couple, you've got to find middle ground. You have to find middle ground in marriage, but especially when, you work together, you live together, there's tension. Like I apologized to Dawn the other day because something happened, and I just took it out on her because she's the only one here that works with us, that I work with and here at the mansion on a regular basis. So I don't have the dogs just look at me like they don't know what I'm talking about. And so
they don't know what you're talking about.
I know, because I take it out on you, but
they only know Spanish.
But sometimes it happens. It's just a human thing, right? And I apologize, but at the end of the day, I mean, you're spending so much time together. And when times are good, it might be easier. But when times are tough and times are crazy like it is now with inflation, war in Europe, now the Roe v. Wade thing, we got the January 6th thing. I mean, everyone is so divided in this country. It's you might as well call it a proxy civil war, because it's not literally a civil war, but it's damn near a proxy civil. It's going that way, and hopefully that won't. We don't want. I know that's no good for anyone. Right. And hopefully we can find middle ground. But that's what it takes. We've got to find middle ground and say, hey, look, you can believe in your religion, you can believe in yours, you have no religion, who cares? That's up to you and your belief system and your family and your church and all the rest of it. That's all fine. But don't force me law-wise to follow laws that follow your interpretation of the world that was, that may or may not have been, anyway,
right.
I won't keep going through that. But find middle ground.
It's the third time you've said.
All right, okay. I know, I keep going. All right. So I'm a little fired up about this, but remember to subscribe to the podcast. Success, Money, Marriage. It's usually
Come back next week.
It's happier normally.
Come back next week.
Well, I don't want to play Pollyanna and pretend that she's giving me. If you're just listening, she's giving me the axe. So I'm cut off. So this is 38 years. This is my life. Run.
Lucky. Yeah.
So let me end the show with this. If you're thinking about getting married, run away. Don't look back. Just keep running and run like Forrest Gump. Just run run, Forrest.
Stephen,
run. Don't look back, because she might be chasing you. Don't look back. Just keep running until you can't run anymore, and chances are she'll give up, and then you're free.
This is a marriage podcast.
Success, Money, Marriage podcast. You'll probably have more money if you're on your own. Probably have more money. I think I'd be a lot richer. She's giving me the dirty look. Anyway, okay. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening to the podcast. SuccessMoneyMarriage.com. Don't forget to subscribe so you can hear all this wonderful, cheery. We're going to lose every subscriber we have, probably. All right.
Say goodbye.
Well, say goodbye. Say goodbye. So if you're quitting our podcast, goodbye. Thank you for joining us for previous podcasts. But remember to subscribe at the website, SuccessMoneyMarriage.com. See you next time.
Bye-bye.